Hello there and a very good morning and welcome to the Breakfast Rundown with me, Zulfick Farzan. Now let's dive into the details of a story that we've been following here at Newsfirst. That is the discovery of skeletal remains from the Colombo port premises. Now an investigation is currently underway into the discovery of several skeletal remains that were discovered from the Colombo port premises in July earlier this year. Now, bone fragments were found near the first roundabout upon entering from the Colombo Chaitya Road through the harbour gate and towards the left side of the main harbour road. Now, the old Secretariat building of the Colombo port is also located in close proximity to the site where the bones were unearthed. Now, the remains were discovered during excavation work for the construction of an elevated expressway from Ingrukade Junction to Colombo Port City. The bones were found approximately 6 feet below the surface. Now, under court orders, the investigation began under the supervision of Professor Raj Somodeva, a well-known expert in the field. Now, the bones were exhumed in the presence of Colombo Additional Magistrate Bandari Lanka. Now, members of the Association of Families of Missing Persons were also present yesterday when the bone fragments were exhumed in the presence of the justice. Now, at the same time, last night, a collision between two buses led to 49 people being hospitalized in Bibila. Now, a collision between the two buses took place in the Nagala area in Bibila. Now, the injured are currently receiving treatment in hospital and one person was transferred to the Monorail General Hospital for further care. Now, the accident took place on the Colombo on the Bibila Ampara road when a private bus travelling towards Ampara from Bibila was rear-ended by a SLTP bus. Now, the private bus was transporting employees from an apparel factory in the area. Now, preliminary investigations by police indicated that the accident happened when the private bus stopped to allow its passengers to disembark and the SLTP bus, which was coming from behind, failed to halt on time and crashed onto the rear end of the private bus. Now, the driver of the Sri Lanka Transport Board bus has been arrested pending investigations. The footage you are right now witnessing on your screens are footage captured by our correspondents following the accident. Now, at the same time, yesterday, Sri Lankan President has sacked 4 state ministers with immediate effect. Now, the removed state ministers are State Minister of Ports and Aviation Premalal Wijayasekara, State Minister of Power and Energy Indiga Anuruddha, State Minister of Agriculture Mohan Priyadarshan De Silva, and State Minister for Highways Siripala Gamlat. Now, according to the President's Media Division, these 4 state ministers were removed under the authority granted to the President by Article 47(3)(a) of the Constitution of the Democratic Socialist Republic of Sri Lanka. Now, today is day 3 of postal voting for the 2024 presidential election. Now, postal voting will continue today from 8:30 a.m. until 4:30 p.m. across 1,500 designated polling centres located across the island. Now, postal voting initially commenced on Wednesday, and the Election Commission announced that postal voters who are unable to cast their vote even today will be given the opportunity to exercise their franchise on the 11th and 12th of this month. Now, they can do so by visiting the respective district election officers corresponding to the location of their workplace. Now, this year around, a total of 712,319 government employees have qualified for postal voting. Now, Rohana Hettiarachchi, the Executive Director for an election monitoring body PAFREL, said that the postal voting process was taking smoothly. And the Department of Post has also said that the distribution of polling cards for the 2024 presidential election that will take place on the 21st of September has already begun. Now, at the same time, the marked ballot papers for postal voting have also been placed in secure packages and been transported under heightened security to the respective locations monitored by the Election Commission. Now, at the same time, the Department of Posts has designated the 8th of September as a dedicated day for the distribution of official polling cards ahead of the presidential election. Now, let's switch gears to Sri Lanka's political landscape. Now, as we head to the presidential election, Sri Lanka's political landscape is heating up with various statements being made by candidates about their rival candidates. Now, Sajith Premadasa, the son of former President and late President Ranasinghe Premadasa, is the presidential candidate for the Samagi Jana Balawegaya. Now, he has voiced strong criticism over the comments made by independent presidential candidate and current President Ranil Wickremesinghe and Jatika Jana Balawegaya or National People's Power presidential candidate Anura Kumara Dissanayake. Now, Premadasa claims that the quote-unquote Ranil-Anura agreement has now become a reality. Now, Sajith Premadasa stated that President Ranil Wickremesinghe has openly expressed his support for Anura Kumara Dissanayake to become the president, and this alliance between the UNP and the JVP signifies that President Wickremesinghe has no chance of winning on his own. Now, Sajith Premadasa has urged UNP members not to waste their votes and instead support the SJB and its coalition, which he leads as the son of former President Ranasinghe Premadasa. Now, he emphasized that a vote for Dissanayake is a vote for a group that collaborates with the current administration, which he accuses of protecting corrupt individuals. He said the Ranil-Anura agreement is a clear indication of their fear, and they are afraid that the SJB will rebuild and develop the country, creating manufacturing industries and transform all schools into smart schools. Now, at the same time, Anura Kumara Dissanayake, the presidential candidate of the Jatika Jana Balawegaya, has called for support from the northern region of Sri Lanka. Now, speaking at a campaign rally in Kilinochchi last evening, Anura Kumara Dissanayake has extended an invitation to the population in the north to support his bid for the highest office in the country. He highlighted a significant shift in political attitudes among the Tamil youth in the northern province, noting that the new generation has moved away from traditional politics. And he said, for the first time, there is an opportunity to transfer power to the hands of the lower class in the country. Now, Dissanayake emphasized that while the NPP is poised to win the election scheduled for September 21st, support from the northern population is crucial for his victory. He also pointed out that previous governments, often rejected by the north, had failed to address the needs and the issues of the region. Now, moving on, we have another presidential candidate who is the youngest this year. Now, that is Namal Rajapaksa. Now, he is also a son of a former president, that's Mahinda Rajapaksa. He is also the nephew of former President Gotabaya Rajapaksa, who was ousted from office in 2022 following the economic crisis. Now, Namal Rajapaksa is representing the Sri Lanka Podu Jana Peramuna. Now, he has said that he has an ambitious plan to build the economy capable of paying off the nation's debt within 5 years. Now, speaking to supporters at a campaign rally, Rajapaksa outlined his vision for economic stability and growth, emphasizing the importance of agriculture, technology and tourism. Now, he also criticized the delays in projects such as the Sampur power plant as well as the Uma Oya multipurpose development project, which he attributed to the previous government's inefficiencies. Now, he highlighted the need to provide farmers with essential resources, including sufficient water for their crops, technology and land solutions to ensure that every possible crop is cultivated in Sri Lanka. Now, Sri Lankan President Ranil Wickremesinghe, who is also running for office again as the independent presidential candidate, has warned that altering the existing IMF program would jeopardize the country's growth and future prospects. Now, he said that recent strides towards economic stability have been made possible through concerted efforts and crucial support from international financial institutions. He said that the agreements with the International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, the Asian Development Bank and 18 leading economies have been instrumental in advancing the nation's economic reform program. Now, the president said that maintaining these agreements without alterations is deemed essential for securing a prosperous future for Sri Lanka, with any modifications potentially jeopardizing ongoing progress and future prospects. Now, in a significant boost to the economy, approximately 100 companies are currently focusing on the Port City project, said the president. Now, Sri Lankan President Ranil Wickremesinghe made those comments at the official opening of the mall at the Colombo Port City area, which is a new duty-free shopping complex. Now, this marks the debut of the first urban duty-free shopping mall in the region, featuring a range of stores, restaurants and various retail outlets. Now, following the unveiling of the commemorative plaque and the official opening, President Ranil Wickremesinghe also engaged in an observation tour of the new complex. Now, he also said that 74 companies are expected to establish operations in Sri Lanka by the end of this year, and additionally, a new tourist zone will be established in Colombo Fort, which is anticipated to increase the number of visitors to these areas. Now, the footage you're witnessing on your screens is the official opening of the mall at the Colombo. Now, one of the key components in Sri Lanka's economy right now is the International Monetary Fund's Extended Fund Facility for the country, a 48-month-long program where funds are being dispersed to the country in tranches following reviews conducted by the IMF staff. Now, an expert in sovereign debt restructuring, Professor Lee C. Bouquet, says that society acts as though it believes that their capacity will not need the fiscal space that it is now consuming prematurely. Now, he made this statement at the anniversary oration at the Central Bank of Sri Lanka titled "Sovereign Debt, the Myth of the Golden Age." Let's have a listen to his comments.
All countries have the ability to borrow on the public credit, but up to a certain limit. That borrowing capacity will be constrained by the market's perception of the country's creditworthiness, by an assessment of its fiscal and monetary policies, by a lot of factors that are extraneous to the country. The more acute the perceived risk of the sovereign debtor, the higher will be the interest rate that the market will charge to compensate for that taking on that additional risk. And in the final analysis, if the risk is perceived to be too great, the markets will shut off altogether. That's the sudden stop that our economist friends like to talk about. That capacity to borrow, that is the ability to raise debt capital that has not yet been used, is part of what the economists call a country's fiscal space. In these remarks, I'm going to refer to fiscal space as the unused capacity of a sovereign to borrow. No country knows exactly when. The market may perceive that it has reached the saturation point. There will be signs. When the risk premium begins to creep up, that's the sign that the market is perceiving it. But you can't tell exactly when that will happen. How much more difficult is it to try to predict when that saturation point will have been reached 10, 20, 30 years down the road? There is also the question of remedy. Confronted with a mountain of inherited debts, our posterity will have the four options I've just described. Pass the debts on, tax yourself to pay them, inflate them away, or default and restructure them. None are pleasant, but at least one, historically, will be sufficient. There is no easy remedy when you have taken away the fiscal space of a future generation. Even a cathartic debt restructuring will probably render the country to be a greater perceived credit risk and will delay even further its ability to borrow on tolerable terms. A sovereign's untapped borrowing capacity is a very precious thing. It will determine whether the country can respond with financial vigor to future exigencies. With adequate fiscal space, the sovereign can borrow to fight a war, to recover from a natural disaster, to cushion citizens from the effects of a pandemic, to stimulate an economy in the wake of a financial collapse. But in the absence of adequate fiscal space, the sovereign's response to any of those calamities will be at best feeble and at worst wholly unsatisfactory.
Well, that brings a wrap to this morning's edition of the Breakfast Rundown with me, Zulfick Farzan. If you want to follow these stories in detail, do log on to our website, www.newsfirst.lk. And also don't forget to follow us on our social media handles on X, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, as well as on TikTok. Until I meet you again next Monday morning, same place, same time. Take care and God bless.